Clicker. Thank you. All right, so we have our next talk done by the amazing Capco, and the title of the talk is Finding the Right Career Path, How to Discover What You're Good At and Where You're Going. Oh, and where you belong. Ooh, yo, that's deep. We're going to have an amazing conversation. I'm very excited about it. I hope you're all going to get some value from it too. So I'm going to invite our speakers up to the floor one by one. So can we first have Soraia Santos, who's the Global Inclusion and Belonging Lead. Can we have a round of applause, please? Yes, thank you, Soraia. Can we have Dimitra Pantazi, yes, who's our Global Talent Attraction, Inclusion and Belonging Specialist. Yes, that is a title. Can we have Millicent Lartey, Principal Consultant? Thank you so much. Round of applause. And then can we also have Jamain Graveney? Graveney? Graveney. I tried and I failed. It's okay. Another Principal Consultant. Round of applause. And then finally, Patrick Obijuru. Yes? Round of applause. Thank you so much. Take a seat, Patrick. Is there enough seats for you?
No, we've got no seat.
Oh, fine. Okay. Oh, we'll get another seat for Patrick. Yeah. But awesome. So I'll hand over the mic. You can all introduce yourselves, talk a bit about what you do at the company, how long you've been there, and we'll get into the conversation.
Are you going to stand, Dimitra? I hope not. So do we do an intro first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I can go first. So my name's Soraia Santos, and I'm the Global Inclusion and Belonging Lead at Capco. And I've been at Capco coming up to 2 years now, and my role really focuses around, what are we doing from a DI perspective at the company, what programs are we bringing to life, and how we really bring our value of Be Yourself at Work to life across the business, and not just something that we have on a slide.
So I'm Millie. I have been at Capco for 8 years now. I am a principal consultant, which is basically just a level of consultant within Capco. At the moment, I specialise in change in capital markets. So some of the investment banks really is focusing on front to back change and really kind of how that's affected by the market. It's challenging, it's rewarding. I love it.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jamain Graveney. I'm also a principal consultant at Capco. I've been with the firm for about 1.5 years now, and prior to that, I had a career across EY, PwC, the FCA, and Barclays. I specialise in risk and compliance, and I work with a lot of our largest banking clients. And I'm absolutely delighted to be here with all of you.
Hi, my name is Patrick. I joined Capco 7 years ago. Currently principal consultant within the firm, having joined on the ATP, our Associate Graduates Intake, and I'm a data specialist, I'll say.
Is this one, two? Hi, everyone. I'm Dimitra. I joined Capco earlier this year. And so I'm the Talent Attraction and Inclusion and Belonging Specialist. So I work for a Global Center of Excellence team. And what I'm looking after is elements of inclusion along with Soraia, but also elements of employer branding and what is that we represent and how is that we're representing who we are and how we stand for our values along with our affinity groups and also, the reasons why we're here today. But I will also, before that, I worked in the software development sector, again within inclusion at some point, but before that I was a recruiter for many, many years. And, this is when I decided I want to go into, inclusion and belonging. And I will also be moderating this panel today. So hopefully, that would be okay. Are we okay to start?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So I'm going to start with the first question. And I'd like this question to be answered by everyone. If you can't hear me or anything, just shout. Okay, so if your friends or family had to describe your strengths back when you were 18, what would they have said? And would you agree with them now? Should we go
Shall I start?
Go for it.
I'm thinking a lot of reflection on a Wednesday. So I was looking at this question and I was thinking, what was 18-year-old Soraia like? I think I will land on something that people told me from a very young age, which was I knew what I wanted and I went for it and I could not be swayed. Like, you could not tell me to do something else, if that's what I wanted to do. Now I've had to learn how to pivot, how to adapt, especially in, a corporate setting. But I do believe that I have a very strong kind of North Star, and that really stays consistent in what I do. And I think that's definitely stayed there from 18-year-old Soraia to 42-year-old Soraia.
Thanks.
Who next? Are we going to go this way?
Yeah, we're going to go that way.
All right, okay. So looking back, I kind of think that a lot of my friends and families probably would have labelled me as quite a good listener. In the sense that I was always someone who was like there for people, willing to kind of talk about how, what was going on, like how to problem solve and how to kind of navigate through things. And I think, like, when I sat down to think about this question, I think looking back on that is something that I think is still who, the image I am today as part of who I am as an individual person. But I think historically I've always thought of it as a trait, really, rather than like just part of who I am. And then now I see, I suppose, the effectiveness of how it's helped me kind of develop and establish my career and where I am right now, in the sense that I've realised as I've gone through like the levels, how the importance of this being that person that shows empathy, understanding, listening and speaking to people and actually asking the questions, etc., to kind of help people feel safe and feel like they want to have a conversation is one of the key components that's helped me build and sustain relationships that I have both externally out of work and then also internally. And I think through the nature of what we do, even consultancy, you kind of go in as a stranger, but they kind of expect that you know everything that's going on. So you have to kind of be that person that has to understand, let them know that you want to listen to what they're saying, but also help give solutions. So it's a bit of it feels like the biggest challenge when you first go in there, but being able to kind of be that person that gives that constant level of dialogue between, what's the problems versus these are my solutions is definitely something that's I've really kind of didn't realise, but I think it's realised it's been very helpful for where I am right now. So it's something that I think I'm going to continue to keep doing. Oh, yeah.
Thank you. I think one thing I was probably okay at 18, and it helped then, was how I used to think about time. So, for example, at 18, I just had a very clear sense, okay, from this point to the end of, say, my degree, I'm going to achieve a minimum of X. And then once I finished my degree, I would start working in a particular type of role, a particular type of job. The reason I wanted to do that was because it opened up certain opportunities. And then after X number of years doing said job, I would have X, Y, Z number of opportunities thereafter. I think the way it probably crystallized in my head throughout my career is just shifting the mindset around what represents your short, medium, and long term. So it's tempting to sometimes think about, say, short term in terms of weeks or months, but if you can extend that horizon, so your short term may represent a small number of years, your medium term represents a slightly greater number of years, and long term more still, it gives you clearer vision, it gives you much clearer direction, it's easier to discipline yourself and manage yourself through very difficult times, and I think it also helps you lead others as well, because at points in our lives, we're all struggling for direction or struggling to think about what to do. And some of us in this room will be looked at as being pillars for other people, right? They look at us and look up to us and we need to guide them. I think shifting that perspective on time has been invaluable.
Thank you. I think for me, 18-year-old Patrick, everybody will probably say, talks a lot, knows a lot about random things, and is an serious person. Today, I would say I'm probably now serious, still talk a lot, still know random things about random things. But as a consultant, it works, right? So as a consultant, you need a vast range of knowledge about random things, helps me. You need to be able to talk and express your views, helps me. And being unserious in a serious environment can work in the right time because it helps to build the relationship, as Millie was saying. So I think a lot of it ties to kind of doing the right thing for me, and I've kind of stumbled into that. So, yeah, I think it's still very coherent as to who I was at 18.
Cool, thanks everyone. Let's move on to the next question. So that will go. Have you ever found yourself being great at something but not really enjoying it? And how did you deal with that balance? Millie, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, I think, like, I've really thought about this, and I think one of the things that people kind of created this, I suppose maybe it's I also contributed towards, is like creating this illusion that I was that person that when I walked into the room was able to kind of be present in the room and kind of be that person with the character, deliver, and like really, you know, help kind of bring the room together. So what I was doing, what I found, and I really reflected it, especially in the last couple of years, was that is part of like who I am. But I think what I was finding that I wasn't necessarily delivering it internally in organisations that was the authentic version of myself. So what, I mean, this kind of relates to some, I suppose, maybe some of the points I touched on the previous panel around that whole concept of the imposter syndrome. So I kind of, how did I navigate through, one, being that imposter, you know, I'm in this organisation, in these various organisations, sometimes the only female in the team, sometimes the only black person in the team, and then also being recognised as like the younger person. So I was like, how do I see, you know, I'm talking to these people that are senior levels, they're looking at me for stuff. So I was like, all right, okay, I'm going to be this person that speaks really well. I'm not going to pretend I'm from South London. I'm not going to drop my T's. I'm going to be like really eloquent. And what I found is that like, I then created this fear of public speaking. Like when I was running these meetings, I was stuttering, I was like, I was either saying what I needed to say really quickly, spitting out all my words and just being like, done. A half an hour meeting was done in like 15. And everyone was like, oh, okay, we've got 15 more minutes, any questions? I was like, no, see you later, bye. But then what I really kind of took and what I started to understand and really kind of navigate through was the way I was delivering that way was giving me, I was kind of almost like building up anxiety following those meetings. I had the anxiety prior to those meetings, but I was also kind of still having this other this fear afterwards. So I was creating this profile of a person in work who I thought was delivering, but was also just creating a person that was pushing themselves towards burnout because I was anxious, I wasn't sleeping, and I was just saying, I need to be this person that they want me to be. And then I actually did kind of semi-burnout a little bit of a result of that. So then what I ended up having to do, and one of the things that Capco helped provide as well, is like, I did a bit of self-work where we have like mentors, where we have almost like an informal relationship with people who are senior and obviously have experienced some of these things. And through that, I kind of understood around the value of how being the authentic version of yourself actually is the most beneficial thing you can do whenever you're in the room, whenever you're doing whatever you're doing and whatever you want to look that you're trying to excel at, because that is the way that you're going to be able to say everything you want to say, showcase all the things you need to do, and really have people leave the room feeling confident that you know what you want to do, because you never feel like you still have more to say and that you didn't say this, and then you're jumping around to try and make people understand a little bit more because you forgot this thing, because you're relaxed. Or I started to feel a lot more relaxed. I started to feel like just because I didn't know the answer, I was okay to say I didn't know the answer. So that was one of the things that I think, and I still today, I don't mind dropping my T's. I don't mind having a South London accent. I don't mind those bits. People laugh at me sometimes, but I'm like, it's cool, it is what it is. So like, that's one of the things I would say.
Thank you, Millie. That was really nice. I do come with an accent too, so I hear that. Quick one, to be honest. So next question would be, that's actually one of my favorite ones. Was there a moment when you realized that this is what I'm meant to do, or has it been more of a gradual journey? And Soraia, would you like to talk us through that, please?
I think for me, the gradual journey hasn't ended yet. I'm constantly kind of, looking and thinking about what I want to do next. I knew the space that I wanted to work in, right? I knew that I wanted to work in social justice of some sort, or DEI in general from very early on, but I didn't fall into that career. I went into, operations roles, and I just knew, like, I remember being up for promotion and thinking, there's no way facilities is for me. Like, what am I doing here? Like, how am I going to pivot? And I think, as well, like, and I talked about being determined and always kind of like going for what I wanted to do, but then having to navigate that with, and some people may know this, but when you have kind of like immigrant parents who came over and the pressure, of like, you can't leave a job that's a good job. Like, why do you want to leave a job? Why do you want to change jobs? Even the concept of changing jobs was so kind of, wild to my parents, and like why I wanted to do this. So I think it was like a very much an ongoing journey, but at the end of it, knowing where I wanted to kind of end. And even if you were to ask me now, what's your 5-year plan? I know that I want to go into coaching. I know that I want to kind of work with women in leadership. And so I think that question for me, it keeps on really, really, really changing. But I went from wanting to be a judge, wanting to be a journalist. There was just so many things. And I did a degree in English and media. And then I came out of it and I was like, well, how do I get into HR with a degree in English and media and no formal HR kind of, background? And then I found the sweet spot of employee engagement and employee experience, because I knew that was the parts that I was really good at. I was really good at connecting with people and having, conversations with people in the office. And that's kind of how I then segued into DEI.
Thank you, Soraia. We're very happy that you did, because you make us all feel like we belong. So thank you for that. Okay, so next question. What's the biggest risk you said yes to earlier in your career, and what did that teach you? Jamain, would you like to answer that for us?
Thank you. What a question. So I suppose in many respects I've been a bit of a career journeyman. I've worked across consulting, the regulator, industry. I think the biggest was probably when I was at Barclays. I'd been working in a really technical, investigatory type of role, but I had an interest in digital. I was fairly early into Bitcoin, and I was quite interested in just kind of the whole evolution of the digital landscape. But I didn't ever think I had a chance to work in that space at all. But I remember going to an event. Barclays held some really great events back in the day. Our head of digital for the bank was at the event speaking, and I bumped into him in Waterloo Station. And I thought, well, look, I'm never going to get the chance to speak to this person at work, but he's right here. He's getting on the train at the same platform as me. I may as well go and introduce myself, have a chat, and just see where this goes. So we started speaking, and I asked him this question: would you ever consider hiring somebody with my background and my profile in your team? And at this point, it couldn't have been any further away from what I was doing. And he said to me, oh yeah, look, Jamain, email me, and let's just see where we go from there. You kind of think to yourself, yeah, all right, never going to happen. I'm going to email you for sure, but I do not expect anything to come off this. So I remember sitting on the platform. My wife was just coming to join me. So I was sitting on the platform. I'm drafting this message. I got her to proofread it, and I sent it to him that evening. Within a week, his chief of staff had said, Rashir said that he met you at Waterloo and you were at this event. He asked me to have a chat with you just to talk about what we're doing in the team. So we go for a coffee. She said, well, Jamain, I've got a couple of roles. Let me just talk to you about them, and let's just see where we go from there. I meet the leadership team, and I remember it was the 18th of December that year. I left my role it was the most forensic investigatory thing you could have done on one end of the spectrum, to being his business manager for the head of digital on the other end of the spectrum. Like, I couldn't have scripted it. And to this day, I promise you, I just met this guy on a platform in Waterloo. So I'm not sure if it's really my biggest risk or if it was him taking a big risk. It was probably a bit more of the latter. But I can genuinely tell you from lived experience that the concept of big risk, I think, it correlates strongly with simply the positions you put yourself in to feel uncomfortable. And then you just see what happens. And I think that particular move, that changed the whole trajectory of my career. Completely different. And I owe him a great gratitude, a great debt of thanks. But from a risk perspective, that was right up there for me.
Wow, that was amazing. Thank you so much, Jamain. Okay, let's move on to the next question. So we're moving from risk to wrong choices. How might making the wrong choice actually led you to an unexpected opportunity and maybe even a valuable lesson? Excuse my valuable lesson. Patrick, would you like to go for it?
I guess wrong choice is a bit of a tricky word, but I'll say it was the wrong choice in the end. So I was in Southampton. I went to university in Southampton. I saw a job for marketing. And I was like, well, I could do this. It came with some training. I was like, you know what? I need a job. I think I can talk. Let's go. We get there. Lo and behold, I realized this is a door-to-door sales job, which was exactly what I was told it was not. I'm sure there are people who have done that, and they know how this can get. And honestly, I did it for about a month. I was down in Southampton, in Hampshire. I don't know if anybody has been around there. In winter time, I started in about October time, and it's getting into proper winter. It gets dark early. Most people are trying to, they told us, listen, whatever you do between 1 and 5 doesn't really matter. You make your money at 5:30 to 7:30 when people who actually work are back home. 5:30 to 7:30 is getting dark. Like, there were so many times I knocked on doors, and like, I'll see somebody upstairs, she just shuts her window. She shuts her curtain. She's like, I'm not opening the door for you. What? Like, so I thought it was the wrong, I was sure it was the wrong thing for me. But in that, and in hindsight, it helps me so much till today. So much. Because doing door-to-door sales, my mentor, who was kind of my team lead, said to me, we are going to knock on 100 doors, and we need 2 yeses. I was like, huh? On day one, I was like, that's easy. I'm going to knock on 100 doors for 2 yeses. Oh, light work. And no, I did it the first week, and I got 2, but he was helping me, and I did not realize. And then he always had this thing, PMA. And I still tell people I coach, I tell people in the office, PMA, because he was like, every no, your next yes is coming. Your next yes is coming. You're taking the no's out of the way. Your next no. And you're just, for lack of a better word, deluding yourself to just keep going. And as a consultant, and I took that experience. After a month, I'll be honest, there was a day I got rained on. I left my house at 7 a.m. I got back to my house about 11 p.m. I got rained on. I got shouted at by 2 husbands. And I made £30 that day. And I said, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep doing this. So I quit, got a different job. But that experience continued with me. I kept knocking on doors. I moved to Capco. I knock on doors. I don't mind taking a no. The next one we go again. And actually, it's something that's really, really helped my career, because so many people are worried about the rejection. And in reality, like, all right, cool. You may feel bad. All right, cool. Some people may laugh. All right, it is what it is. But the problem is, in a random time, 2 years later down the line, they're going to be like, how are you in this position? Because one of those no's finally turned to a yes, and that was the one that was actually the right one for you. And for me, that yes was joining Capco. It was a place where I could be myself. It was a place where I could do my talking that I've always done. It was a place where I could solve problems like I've always enjoyed. And that no finally became that yes for me. And things have just worked out and grown strength to strength. So I think it's always, and I tell my friends, PMA, I still use it every single time, because literally, it's impossible otherwise.
PMA.
PMA, positive mental attitude.
I'm glad I wasn't the only one seeing it thinking, what's PMA?
Sorry, it's so trending. Once I do this to myself, I already know what I'm telling myself. So, but yeah, it really been. So I thought it was a wrong decision at the time, but in hindsight, I'm super grateful for the experience. Super grateful.
Thank you so much, Patrick. We'll keep that PMA in mind. I didn't know what it was either. So
and platforms. Waterloo platforms.
Encourage,
PMA.
yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's move on to our next question. Have you ever taken on a side project or hobby that ended up influencing your career in surprising ways? Millie, would you like to go for it?
Yeah. So,
okay. Thank you. Next
in a nutshell,
question,
I have.
Okay.
So I suppose, like everyone in lockdown, decided to start off making banana bread, because everyone was doing it. And that basically evolved into me being like, oh, I can bake. So what I ended up doing is almost like a side project, which started off as just a few things to just stop me eating all the food in my fridge, to actually baking them. And so I ended up 5 years down the line, I established my own baking company, which I don't know, it can be stressful, especially when you've worked a whole 8-10 hour shift at work and then you come home to bake. What this has taught me a lot about myself. It's taught me about looking at who I am, what I enjoy doing, and how I can make sure that I'm doing that as part of my life in day to day. Because I think a lot of people, I'm guilty of it. I've been guilty of it before the 5 years ago, before I started my baking company. It's that, especially also like coming from my background, my parents' background, your life is get up, go to work, earn money, come home. It doesn't matter if you have to sleep, it doesn't matter. Just do your thing because you need to earn money. And so, like I said, I got into that kind of hamster wheel of being that person, and the elements of like, I was finding it challenging, but I also was like, am I still getting from it what I actually need? And I had to take that time to self-reflect and be like, what is it that I actually want from my career? What is it that I want for me as like my progression as to who I am and how I want to kind of be established as a person? Then looking at that bit and saying, okay, so what does my job actually give me? And it's like, I've been in Capco for 8 years, so there's definitely elements of what the company and what the roles that I do are giving me, but I still was able to identify that there were some additional gaps. And as much as it's hard work through kind of maintaining and juggling a cake company on the side as well as doing 9 to 5 day-to-days, this has helped me kind of feel that sense of fulfillment that I'm making sure that overall as me as an individual, I'm kind of doing myself justice to say like at the end of each week, at the end of each month, I'm celebrating who I am because, I've done all these hard things in the office. I've done all these easy things in the office, but I've also done the easy things and the hard things as part of who my life is as well. And it kind of helps you, I suppose, think around what you're doing and also push yourself out of that comfort zone to be like, what you're doing right now doesn't have to be all you're doing, and think around like that opportunity to think around, what am I doing now? Is it meeting my needs? Yes or no? Where else is the other scope that I can do? Like, I never in a million years thought I was that girl that could do 2 jobs, just because I'm lazy sometimes. But managing 2 jobs where one of them is definitely related to your passion gives you a whole new lease of life as well. Or even being fortunate enough to have a job that actually utilises your passions as well is really also just as powerful. But I think what I'm trying to really say is like, taking that time to really understand is, what is it that you want from your profile, from yourself, from your career, from what you want to be, as in what is your brand and how you kind of like deliver that and how you kind of establish that yourself as part of your career, as part of your own personal development is really key. And I think it's something you can do. You don't have to do it as soon as you leave university. You don't even have to do it 5 years into work. You can do it 20 years into work. It's something that is really kind of good to do because it has so many benefits, and it's definitely worthwhile that even though it's busy, some months with navigating cake baking, etc., it's definitely something that's helped transform my career as well, in the sense that I definitely feel happier and more fulfilled in my day-to-day, which then naturally just resonates in part of who I am and how I kind of overall show up for myself in work, my friends, and my family.
Thank you, Millie. And also, you make us happier when you make cupcakes.
What's that, sir?
You make us happier when you make cupcakes because they're
also,
amazing.
As a result of that, I also make multiple Capco cupcakes as well. So
combining
my loves.
That is true. So I'm going to go to the next question, and I'm going to try to speed that up a little bit because I'm not sure how we're doing for time. But next question. How much do you think young people should plan their careers versus just figuring it out through trial and error? Jamain, would you like to answer that for us, please?
Yeah, sure. I definitely think there's an element of planning that is beneficial, because we always hear if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, and I think like foundationally. And many of us in this room have probably grown up with our parents and grandparents telling us that, right? And we've got that as a mantra in our heads. I think foundationally, it's really helpful for us to have a sense of the direction that we're moving in, because life ultimately comes down to just decision making. Every single thing we choose to do, we choose not to do, the places we choose to go, where not to go, the people we befriend, those we choose not to befriend. It's all a series of decisions that ultimately knits together, right, to form our lives. And I think it's important to have a strong sense of who you are and what you're about. And I think that's why planning is really important. I think when it comes to starting your career, it's just really important as well, though, to be patient, macro. Because if you just think I just kind of really distill it to what I think is the simplest terms. If we start work around the age of 21, and let's just say on average we're going to retire around the age of 71, you've got 50 years to play. Over that 50 years, if you were to just spend 10 years, 15 years figuring things out, still growing, forming relationships, learning new things, right? Maybe you travel, you might work in a different country, try some different roles, you might follow a trend, whatever it may be. I think you've still got so much time to play over the average career that we're going to have. You know, it doesn't mean in that time you don't work really hard. It doesn't mean you don't apply yourself really intensely. I think you can figure that out. But I think for the majority of our careers, we can sometimes have visions of doing many things really early and trying to front load everything and getting to places really, really quickly. And we can lose sight so easily of the fact that we've got so many years to play. And over that time horizon, we want meaningful relationships. We want partnerships. We want our family to like us and want to spend time with us. We want to experience things. And I think that is as important to plan for as it is for being outstanding in whatever field you choose to go into. Fulfillment, joy, things to smile about, eating cupcakes. And I'm desperate to try Millie's cupcakes. I've not had any yet. But I think for all of us in this room, we've all got hidden passions and interests, and some very public passions and interests. And I would just say, you're probably not going to regret planning to enjoy those as much as you plan to be great at your career.
Thank you, Jamain. That was very insightful. So we're going to move on to the last two questions and then open it up. We're going to try and be a bit faster. Okay. So let's move on to the next one. Has there been a period or time when you perhaps felt stuck or even in the wrong role? And how did you find the courage to acknowledge that, but also pivot? I mean, if you managed to pivot. Soraia, would you like to give us your views on that?
Yeah, and I think I'll take that, to what the title of this kind of session is, right? Finding out where you belong. So I worked in different industries. I worked in public relations, in higher education. Funnily enough, I told myself that I would never work in financial services, yet here I am. But I think it went to finding what the values of an organization were and wanting to align myself to those. So for me, with Capco, it was the be yourself at work. That, I saw that and I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to explore this. How does this actually happen? And how do they bring it to life, across the firm? So I was feeling completely stuck. As I mentioned, I did not want to be a director of operations. I was just thinking, no, I need to spend more time with people. I need to, feel that connection. So that for me was, the step. And it goes back to, though, having that time and that self-reflection. And I always tell my friends when they ask me this, speak to yourself, write down notes, tell yourself, where do I see myself in 2 years? Where do I see myself in 5 years? Make notes, have a vision board, speak to organizations. If you have the luxury to not have to rush into a job, take your time, even if you're in a role where you're not 100% happy, but really take your time to have those meaningful conversations with recruiters, with hiring managers, and then really align that to what your next step is. So I really kind of stand really strong by that, identifying only you can really know what is important to you for your next role, and then having that courage to say, okay, I'm actually not happy here, and it can be for many reasons. It doesn't have to be bad. You don't have to leave an organization because it's horrible. It's just having the conversations that say, I'm just ready for something else. I had one of my friends saying that she's been somewhere for 10 years, and she was like, how do I say to them now that actually I want to move on while still keeping that relationship going. And we were talking about, you know, sometimes you plant a plant and you look after it and it grows and it's beautiful. And just because it's outgrown that pot, it doesn't mean that you didn't do the right thing up until then. You just need to now, you know, move along. So that for me was really important.
Can I add something quickly onto that? So one thing I would probably say from your perspective as well is, I also recently became the UK lead for race and equality, and that's something within Capco, and that's something I'd never even thought about doing as a role. However, speaking to someone like Soraia in the role that she is within the organisation helped me understand what that role was, and then has allowed me the scope to actually develop and be in a role that I really enjoy. And I feel like it's something I should know. I don't know how I was never that person in the organisation. So what I'm trying to say is sometimes just speaking to people, you may not necessarily know the answers to what you want to do because no one knows, but having relationships and talking to people, finding out about what they're doing and like what other things that they've come from in their past can help you also kind of help carve out that pathway as well, because now I feel like I was always an R&E lead and I'm just loving it. But yeah, that's just what I wanted to add on to that.
And I'll make a do.
Thank you both. We do have a final question if we have the time, because consultants tend to talk a lot. So here is a favorite question. So if you could give just one small practical step to someone here today to move their career forward, what would that be? Patrick, would you like to talk us through that? That's the
Honestly, very simple. Apply. You're just in, and I'll be very transparent, I have a lot of cousins who are in university who have just graduated as well, and who I discuss kind of entry career with, and there is no other way, but you just have to apply. You're gonna be rejected, that goes without saying, but through the process, you want to be refining your CVs, you want to be refining the answers to those questions, you want to be refining answers to motivation, and money is not always a bad answer, by the way. Like being direct, and I told Capco when I joined, I'm looking for money. So it's just what it is. My parents are Nigerian, nobody's saving me. So it is what it is. So sometimes, so you're refining your answers and how you shape those things. And the only way you have to do it is through just doing it. That would be my advice.
Thank you. I think we're done with our questions.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. We have just one question from Slido, just because of time. And this could be everyone or anyone. The question is, how would you describe the work culture at Capco?
Oh, I'm happy to take this. I've been at Capco for 7 years. I really like it. To describe it, I'll say it's more of a flat organization. So the hierarchy there is, but it's not very politically hierarchical, if that makes sense. You can go talk to a partner, you can go talk to an MP. If you have an idea, you can grow your idea and the business will support you. It's, and yes, we are not the big four. It would allow you to get your hands dirty. If you have an idea, you don't have to wait for somebody to say, yes, go do it. In my first weeks, one of the first things I set up was associate days down to Southampton University. I did that before I'd even passed probation. So you're able to do things as long as you're willing to get your hands dirty and you're willing to actually contribute to the growth of the business, and Capco will support you. I've been there 7 years now, and I think hopefully as long as they keep promoting me, there's more to go.
Yeah, I would second that. I would say we have this whole kind of initiative, which is Be Yourself at Work. I think underneath that, obviously, like I said, I lead one of the affinity groups, which is Race and Equality, which is around, but we also have multiple different affinity groups that sit underneath that. So we have parents and carers, we have Pride, etc. And all those are really about giving people a sense of creating a space that they allow themselves to kind of create a community, to have that representation whereby we lead events, we kind of have a forum, we almost like make people aware that there are other people who have the same kind of needs, celebrations, desires as each other, and also provide, on the reverse of that, also provide a platform for information as well. So just because it's Black History Month, for example, it's not only for Black people, it's for everybody, because we focus on learning, like education. When I deliver events, it's around what is Ramadan, what is the significance of it? It's not just about coming and eating. So there's really a very strong culture around really be yourself at work. You don't have to be suited and booted. You can go in trainers and have toes. Yeah.
And I'll just add that one of the things since I've kind of joined as the DI program manager, and Millie, you've heard me talk about this many times, is, from a culture perspective and a values perspective, first of all, I feel really grateful to work somewhere that has be yourself at work as a value, especially in the current kind of climate and the conversations around DEI. I think having that there as a backdrop has really allowed us to carry on pushing forward with the programming that we want to do, and we've seen a lot of organizations not be in that kind of same space. But one of the things as well that we really work on is the intersectionality, and Millie will hear me talk about this all the time. There is a power in coming together and understanding that we all have many layers in our identity. So when we come to work, we want to celebrate all of those identities. So if it's R&E collaborating with parents and carers, Pride collaborating, with the women at Capco, whatever it is, it's really being intentional about understanding just how multifaceted we all are. And I think we do that really well when it comes to our culture.
And just a quick build on Soraia's point there, it feels very genuine. I'd say our organisation is small enough that you can actually get a real feel for what is actually happening. And I've worked in bigger places before where you have initiatives, but you can feel quite distant from the sincerity and from the real vibrancy and the energy that can surround it. Whereas I think for any of our events, the minute you walk into the building, everything is decorated, everybody's involved. There's always group events to help us celebrate collectively. And I think that genuine feel is really wonderful to be part of.
Thank you so much. Round of applause for Capco. Wow. I want to work at Capco too, please. Thank you. Could just speed